hypotensive en route. Obvious head and chest injuries.
Callie? Callie? You doctor, you hear me? Everything is
She's
gonna
hemorrhaging.
be-
Wait, hold on. Is that blood coming from her chest?
What?
This week's episode of Grey's Anatomy delivers emotional turning points and high-stakes medicine as several doctors confront life-altering choices. Richard Weber faces one of the toughest decisions of his career: how to treat his prostate cancer. After Catherine brings in renowned urologist Dr. Laura Kaplan for a second opinion, Richard initially resists the idea of risky surgery. But after learning about Kaplan's own MS diagnosis and how she adapted her career, Richard realizes fear has been guiding his choices. In a powerful moment, he decides to move forward with surgery, choosing life over fear. Meanwhile, Bailey and Owen team up on a nearly impossible case, removing a massive 35-pound benign tumor that's crushing a patient's organs. Inspired by recent groundbreaking surgeries at Gray Sloan, Owen suggests using ECMO to keep the patient stable. The risky plan works, the tumor is removed, and Owen finds renewed purpose, even pitching new EMS-style training for residents. Jo Wilson continues recovering from childbirth complications while navigating intense postpartum emotions. While visiting the NICU, she saves another mother's life by diagnosing eclampsia mid-seizure, proving she's still a doctor at heart, even on maternity leave. Jo and Link also reveal their twins' names, Peyton and Hattie. On the personal side, Jules struggles with loneliness and unresolved feelings for Winston. Encouraged by Quan, she finally takes a chance on something new, introducing herself as Sally to a stranger at Joe's bar. Overall, Episode 8 blends medical triumphs with deeply human moments, reminding fans why Grey's Anatomy still hits hard in Season 22. Hey lovely viewers, welcome to our channel Grey's Anatomy Official. Your official Grey's Anatomy recap, Season 22, Episode 8. Last week's episode of Grey's Anatomy ended by assuring us all that Jo Wilson was going to be okay. We love a dramatic eye-opening from a hospital bed, but this week, she's still dealing with a complicated postpartum situation. She's not the only one facing some complex life moments, though. Heavy on Me sees Richard make a major decision about his prostate cancer treatment plan. Bailey and Owen team up to remove a 35-pound tumor from a woman's abdomen, and Jules ponders if she is too aloof. I guess that last thing isn't as dramatic as cancer treatment and giant tumors, but it is important nonetheless. Let's dig into this week's episode. Richard makes his choice. There's honestly nothing like one of our Gray Sloan docs emotionally declaring that they are a surgeon with verve and feeling, reminding us that's who they are in their bones. This is exactly what Richard Weber does by the end of Heavy on Me. Richard has been through so much, hasn't he? Remember when he had a brain tumor? Or when he got cobalt poisoning from a hip replacement? Or that time Meredith told him he's the reason her mom tried to kill herself and ruined their lives? So much. And now our Chief of Chiefs is left angsting over how he should treat his prostate cancer. Well, I guess it's more technically correct to say he's angsting over how Catherine thinks he should treat his prostate cancer. Richard's already made his decision with his doctor. They're going to wait and watch. He doesn't want any kind of risky surgery. What does Catherine want? Well, she's flown renowned urologist and urologic oncology superstar Dr. Laura Kaplan in from Boston to tell Richard to have the risky surgery. It is Catherine's way. Richard's initial meeting with Dr. Kaplan and Catherine ends with him storming out. Kaplan thinks he should do a radical prostatectomy and have the entire thing removed. Richard knows the risks of that surgery, and blood clots, stroke, and injury to the rectum are just 3 in a very long list. But when he runs into Kaplan doing work in the attending's lounge while she's waiting for Catherine's plane to take her back to Boston, Richard isn't angry with her. Both of them understand how Catherine works. Kaplan apologizes for not realizing Richard wasn't the one requesting a second opinion, and she also wonders if he could consult on a patient she's working on. It seems the two become fast friends. Eventually, Kaplan opens up to Richard about having multiple sclerosis. Getting that initial MS diagnosis was terrifying. She worried she wouldn't be able to operate anymore, and it was soul-crushing. But instead, she came to see her MS as not a career ender but as a career pivot. Her symptoms, like muscle pain and leg weakness, would make it nearly impossible for her to stand in or operate, so she simply found a different way to operate. Now, she mainly performs robotic procedures. She can sit, and she doesn't need to be able to hold a scalpel. I still get to do what I love, even if it is in a different way, she tells him. Her words cut to Richard's core. When he sees Kaplan leaving later, he tells her that he rejected her opinion out of fear. If he suffers complications from a radical prostatectomy, especially a rare but very scary-sounding urosymphyseal fistula, he too might never get to operate again. Kaplan reminds him that she can treat complications, but if the cancer progresses, Richard runs out of options. And that seals the deal. He finds Catherine to tell her he doesn't want to live in fear, and all this time, it was his fear that was making medical decisions for him. He's a surgeon, and he'd be devastated to lose that part of him, but whatever happens, people can adapt. He can adapt. He's getting the surgery. A little inspiration goes a long way. See? Sometimes a person simply needs a little push to do something scary but important. Sometimes a person simply needs a little inspiration. Inspiration, as it happens, is exactly what Owen is missing these days. After listening to Teddy and Winston talk about the innovative aorta surgery they pulled off with Nora on podcasts and the like, Owen is a tiny bit jealous. Teddy deserves all the press and accolades, of course, and he repeatedly wants to make sure everyone knows he's totally fine with all this, but more and more he's feeling like his own work is stalling. He's got a case of the bloss, okay? So, when Bailey and Simone present a patient with a 35-pound benign tumor compressing all the organs in her abdomen, Owen is the only doctor who backs them up. He thinks Bailey can remove this tumor, and he wants to help. It doesn't take long for Bailey to realize Owen's motivations for joining her team might not be totally altruistic, but they are mostly altruistic, and that's good enough. She needs as many brains on this case as possible. The patient, London, has attempted surgery before, but because of the pressure on her heart, she's wound up crashing on the table before doctors can remove even part of the tumor. It's Owen who brings up putting London on ECMO so that there would be no shot of her heart failing in surgery. Good for him. It's unconventional, and London's wife, Charlie, is hesitant, but London doesn't particularly feel like waiting around to suffocate to death. She wants to live. She wants the surgery. Bailey and Owen are joined by Winston, Simone, and Lucas in the OR, and while there is more than one moment when things look bleak for London, the team work flawlessly together and eventually remove that behemoth of a tumor. I hope Owen puts it in a jug and takes it home. London is saved, Bailey is relieved, and Owen is finally getting his medical mojo back. In fact, by the end of the episode, he asks Bailey what she would think about building some type of EMS training or ambulance ride-alongs for the residents so they can learn more about thinking on their feet and get additional trauma training. Bailey tells him to write up a proposal for her. Owen Hunt is inspired again. Meet Jules. Sally. Definitely Sally. Like Owen, Jules Millen is in a bit of a slump. Hers, though, is not of the medical variety but rather stems from her non-existent social life. Jules has always been slow to let others in, a trait that sometimes has consequences like the one we saw her face last week when she dashed over to Joe's to tell Winston that she's interested in him, only to find him having drinks with Nurse Iris. It seems everyone around her is busy with other people they've let into their lives, and for Jules, well, the cheese stands alone. Lucas may not be dating Katie yet, but the two are texting regularly, and he does seem to perk up every time he hears from her. Naturally, this bugs Simone, who admonishes him for an inappropriate relationship with a patient, which is hilarious because she is currently and enthusiastically boinking an intern. Eventually, Simone realizes what Lucas is up to is none of her business, and the two manage to have a friendly conversation about getting Katie movie recs while she's laid up. Are these two healing? I will forever be holding out hope that they once again find their way to an on-call room, but for now, this is nice. Quan too seems to have mended whatever he may have messed up last week with Mohunty. Those two and their booty calls are going strong. Good for him. But Quan's not so swept up in his new situationship that he doesn't notice things are off with Jules. Remember when those two were in love with each other? It seems Quan is still a softie when it comes to Jules. Not only does he give up the race for a thrombectomy so that Jules has something to look forward to, but later he notices Jules staring longingly at Winston and realizes what her real problem is. It's Quan who tells her that Nurse Iris is merely a stop sign, not a roadblock, when it comes to her obvious feelings for Winston. He doesn't want her to give up. I do love when Quan is this sweet, but it is also deeply unsettling. Watching all her friends and her big-time crush enjoy their time with other people has Jules feeling down, and it certainly doesn't help when she once again gets saddled with a patient who comes in with some sort of relationship bent to their backstory. She always has to deal with the people who are incredibly in love. It's the universe just repeatedly hitting her over the head. When Jules meets Janet and her husband, Hal, who enjoy role-playing as doctor and patient, until Janet arrived at the hospital with a DVT and a need for an emergency thrombectomy, she's mostly confused about why they would need to pretend to be other people to be interested in the person they supposedly love. Jules is very judgy. But wouldn't you know it? At the end of a long day and another interaction with Winston in which they both clearly want to smash their faces into each other until Iris shows up, no shade, she seems nice, Jules is approached by a cute guy at Joe's, and instead of pushing him away, she invites him to sit down and introduces herself as Sally. Maybe role-playing to liven things up isn't so bad after all. On making mom friends. How about we end this recap with a quick check-in on our constantly beleaguered family of 6, the Lincoln Wilsons. Or the Wilson Lincolns. Have we landed on one of those yet? I am thrilled to tell you that Joe and Link have named their 2 new little ones, welcome to the world, Peyton and Hattie. Joe is on the mend, but it's been only 3 days since Winston had to adjust her pump lest she go into cardiac arrest, so while her heart is getting stronger, she's still being observed. The good news is she does get to spend time with her babies up in the NICU. The bad news is postpartum hormones are a bitch. Joe is crying all over the place, as is her right. After the things this woman has been through in this month alone, I'd be catatonic. Everything is turning Joe into a puddle, even a nice NICU mom named Gina, who refers to her as Peyton and Hattie's mom for the first time. The 2 women chat, Joe gives Gina some postpartum advice as a doctor, and Gina is thrilled to have her first real mom friend. It's very cute. And then Gina falls over and begins having a seizure on the NICU floor. Not so cute. Joe can't move out of her chair, but she flies into OB mode anyway. She can tell Gina is suffering from eclampsia, and if she can't follow her to the OB floor, she wants Link to be her proxy. From speakerphone, Joe demands that the intern put in charge of Gina's care administer magnesium to stop the symptoms. When he hesitates at her diagnosis of eclampsia, boy, does she ream that kid out. A glorious sight to see. Gina's going to be okay, thanks to Joe, who, yes, is still crying. She even takes Nurse Iris' head off when Iris refuses to violate HIPAA, and wishing she felt more like herself. She already misses not being able to be a real doctor at the moment. Sure, it's only temporary, and Joe will be back, but wow, is her maternity leave going to be a real doozy? Grey's Anatomy Season 22 airs new episode tonight, where to stream free. Bailey and Owen join forces to save a tumor patient in a new episode of Grey's Anatomy, airing on Thursday, January 15th. The new episode will air at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Those without cable can watch the show for free through Fubo TV or DirecTV, each of which offers a free trial to new users. Sling is another option for streaming the show, and promotional offers are available. Watch Grey's Anatomy for free on DirecTV. The new season picks up after season 21 ended in a catastrophic hospital explosion, leaving the Grey Sloan staff to save not only themselves but their patients, too. For those who don't know the series, Grey's Anatomy is a high-intensity medical drama that follows a team of doctors at Grey Sloan Memorial Hospital who are faced with life-or-death decisions daily. They seek comfort from one another, and, at times, more than just friendship. Together, they discover that neither medicine nor relationships can be defined in black and white. Ellen Pompeo returns as Meredith Grey, Chandra Wilson as Miranda Bailey, James Pickens Jr. as Richard Webber, Kevin McKidd as Owen Hunt, Kim Raver as Teddy Altman, Camilla Luddington as Joe Wilson, Katarina Scorsone as Amelia Shepard, Kelly McCreary as Maggie Pierce, Chris Carmack as Atticus, Link Lincoln, Jake Borelli as Levi Schmidt, Richard Flood as Cormac Hayes, and Anthony Hill as Winston Dugu. In the new episode, Bailey and Owen join forces to save a tumor patient. Richard faces an internal battle and Jules struggles with her feelings for Winston. How can I watch a Grey's Anatomy without cable? Those without cable can watch the show for free through Fubo TV or DirecTV, each of which offers a free trial to new users. Sling is another option for streaming the show, and promotional offers are available. What is Fubo TV? Fubo TV is an over-the-top internet live TV streaming service that offers more than 100 channels, like sports, news, entertainment and local channels. It offers DVR storage space, and is designed for people who want to cut the cord, but don't want to miss out on their favorite live TV and sports. Fubo TV offers up to $30 off your first month. What is DirecTV? The streaming platform offers a vast array of content, including the best of live and on-demand streaming, with over 75 live TV channels to get started. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 8 Preview, Release Date, Time and Where to Watch. Grey's Anatomy Season 22. Grey's Anatomy isn't done yet. Against all expectations, and more than a few emotional goodbyes, the long-running medical drama returns for another season, once again throwing its doctors into high-pressure cases and even higher-stakes personal fallout. Season 22 picks up with Grey Sloan Memorial still operating at full throttle, as familiar faces step back into scrubs and the hospital continues to test how much its staff can endure before something finally gives. Relationships remain complicated, careers hang in the balance, and saving lives is still only half the battle. If you've been following this one over the weeks, you may be curious to find out when the next episode is releasing. Well, wonder no more. Here is everything you need to know about Episode 8 of Grey's Anatomy Season 22, including its release date, time and where you can watch this. Where can I watch Grey's Anatomy? Grey's Anatomy is scheduled to air on the ABC network. It's also available on Disney+, Hulu, and other streaming services like Sling TV and Fubo TV. For those watching internationally, this one will air a day later on Disney+. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 8 Release Date. Episode 8 of Grey's Anatomy Season 22 will release on Thursday, January 15th at 10 p.m. ET/7 p.m. PT. For those watching internationally, this will drop on Disney+ a day later, on Friday, January 16th at approximately 8 a.m. GMT. Grey's Anatomy should drop with subtitles available whilst watching on catch-up. Episode 8 is expected to be roughly 42 minutes long, which is consistent with the time frame for the rest of the series. How many episodes will Grey's Anatomy Season 22 have? ABC has confirmed that there will be 18 episodes this season, which is pretty consistent with how many have run in years gone by. With that in mind, expect there to be 10 more episodes to go after this one. Is there a trailer for Grey's Anatomy? Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 9 Recap: Webber fights against a second opinion. With Webber dealing with his health issues, there is a lot of focus on him and his internal dilemma during Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 9. Meanwhile, Jules deals with her feelings, and Bailey and Owen work together on a tumor patient. It all starts with everyone listening to Teddy's interview that was mentioned in the previous episode, and this opens the conversation between Catherine and Webber. Naturally, Catherine wants Webber to get a second opinion from a doctor Webber doesn't pay the paycheck of, and that leads to Catherine sharing she already called a doctor. Meanwhile, we learn that Jo is making a full recovery. She focuses on the downsides of her daughters, but Link tries to keep her spirits up. Things take a turn when she realizes that Winston and her favorite nurse, the OBGYN's favorite nurse, have been out a few times. Jules deals with a role-playing patient on Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 9. For Jules, everything starts with a call to the A woman comes in with someone who seems to be her doctor, or maybe her husband who happens to be her doctor. However, it turns out that the two just like to role-play, and the husband isn't a doctor. The leg pain definitely is real. Meanwhile, Bailey goes up to the tumor board to see if she can get help for treatment for a tumor patient. The tumor is benign, but it's a tricky situation and the patient has coded on the table twice while at Seattle Press. The tumor board isn't interested in the risk, except for Owen. He doesn't have any idea on how to deal with it, but he's ready to tackle the situation. Maybe he's encouraged by the success that Teddy has had. Bailey and Owen need a miracle. Webber and Catherine meet with Laura, and she quickly gets into the details of the cancer. The good news is that Webber has caught it early, and she thinks the best treatment is to remove the prostate. However, Webber isn't interested in this, focusing on the downsides of the surgery, such as stroke, and it's understandable. To be fair, Catherine railroaded him into this, and she knows what it's like to want to deal with cancer on your own. However, I will say pot meet kettle. Bailey goes to her tumor patient, Lydia, with the mixed news. While the tumor board says no, Owen makes it clear that he wants to help. It's time for them to co-work on a plan, and Lydia wants to do it. Her wife may not be completely on board with this, but Lydia convinces her to give it a try. Jo heads to the NICU to see her babies, where she meets with another mom of a NICU baby. Despite knowing about the post-birth hormone drop, she wasn't expecting to feel things the way she is doing. However, this NICU mom doesn't let her focus on that part of things. She wants to know all about the crash C-section. As for Catherine, she goes to talk to Weber, accusing him of only wanting a male doctor. Finally, he brings up that while he didn't agree with her healthcare decisions in the past, he accepted them. Now she needs to do the same for him. Then there's Bailey, Owen, Winston, Simone, and Lucas dealing with the tumor. They all run through options, looking at the different downsides to the options. It's time to find a miracle, and it's clear that the podcast with Teddy has spurred this on for Owen. In the Jules overhears a conversation between Link and Winston about Nurse Iris, and pulls a face, but she doesn't have time to react to it or think about her feelings. Her role-playing couple needs help. The wife's DVT has turned into something much more serious with the leg now black. Owen gets an idea on Grey's Anatomy. While in the break room, Laura apologizes to Weber, realizing that he never agreed to meet with her in the first place. She does seem to figure out how to work through to his good side, inviting him to help consult on a patient. You just know how that's going to turn out. As Lucas gets another text message from Katie, Simone immediately judges. She doesn't think the conversation is right for a doctor and patient to have, but it's clear that she's projecting, dealing with the fact that she's sleeping with an intern, the intern that caused problems for Simone and Lucas. Bailey figures out why Owen is helping on the case, but she's interrupted from talking with him by Lucas and Simone walking in with bad news. However, all the bad news, Owen starts to get some ideas. What about using ECMO? Owen decides it's worth going to see Winston to see if it could work. It certainly seems like it could be possible, and while it's not been done before, Lydia is excited to hear about it. Sure, there are some downsides, and there could be a problem, but there is a chance that it could work, and Lydia wants to take the risk. Meanwhile, Teddy gets to the bottom of the DVT patient, and it leads to the reveal that Jules and Blue will be doing the surgery. It's time for Teddy to just observe. As Jo and the new mom bond, things take a turn when the new mom collapses. Fortunately, there are plenty of doctors around, but what will this do to Jo's heart? Laura opens up to Weber. It turns out the NICU mom is seizing, and Jo is sure that it could be eclampsia. Jo gets Link to go up to keep an eye on the new mom, and she'll be able to stay on top of it that way. Of course, not everyone agrees with Jo's diagnosis, but she pushes for the treatment for eclampsia, and nobody can argue with Jo. Meanwhile, Owen and the team start the operation. It's clear that Bailey isn't that happy about the situation, but there isn't much choice here. Everyone else is on board. I still think Laura turned to Weber to get him to listen to her, but it does lead to her opening up about being a doctor with MS. She gets a lot of others to do most of the surgeries, and she works mostly with robotics because of her medical issues. It's clear that something is getting through to Weber that medical conditions don't need to be the end of a career. Elsewhere in the hospital, Jules and Blue practice in the skills lab. As Jules talks about how she's fed up with hospital life, it looks like Blue takes it easy on her and walks out of the skills lab. Jules can have this win. The act ends with a problem in the OR. As the patient's BP drops, Owen and Winston run through all the options that it could be. While there's no sign of bleeding, it's possible that it's something bigger with the surgery. They need to get to the bottom of it, or there is nothing that they can do. Naturally, Bailey is scared about that. Can the doctors save a patient? As Lydia is stabilized, the doctors need to get back on the same page. Owen hands out the orders, but he does turn back to Bailey to make sure she's okay with it all. At this point, they've gone too far to stop. Jules also gets praise from Teddy in her OR. Elsewhere, Laura and Weber discuss the possibility of removing Weber's cancer. It finally comes to what Weber is really worried about. Out of all the side effects, there is a risk of the need of opioids, and that breaks Weber's sobriety. This isn't about fear of the cancer or of actual side effects, it's about what the treatment of those side effects can bring. Back in Bailey's OR, her patient starts to code again. She's able to find where the bleed seems to be coming from, but can they work fast enough to stop it? They manage to pull the tumor out, and now it's time to close her. As for Jo, she gets up to the OBGYN floor, where she checks in on her friend. However, she runs into a roadblock, as she's not the woman's doctor. Iris can't give any of that information, and while a rational Jo would understand that and agree, postpartum Jo doesn't. All she wants to do is find out how her friend is. Weber makes a final decision. Things with the surgery seem to have worked out. Obviously, with Grey's Anatomy, we know not to count out chickens until they hatch, but Lydia makes it out of surgery. As much as Bailey didn't like the idea for a while, she does appreciate how much of a great thing they did. Owen now has some ideas for the residents, getting them out on an ambulance ride-along or something similar. Bailey wants to see a proposal. As we start to wrap up the episode, we learn the role-playing couple are all good, and Lucas and Simone seem to be in a good place with him telling her that while he values Simone's opinion, leave the relationship ones out. At the bar, Winston comes across Jules. The two get talking, but Iris interrupts them. It's clear from Winston that he realizes a little of what's happened, but will that change things between him and Jules? Blue sees that Jules is struggling with the Winston/Iris relationship and makes it clear that Iris is just a stop sign rather than a roadblock. Maybe Jules just needs to pretend to be someone else while hooking up with someone at the bar. Jo gets a chance to open up to Link, as she runs through all of the things that she couldn't do. She felt like she was getting her identity again as a doctor, but then someone else took over when it mattered. Weber also takes the time to open up to Catherine, sharing that he is worried about not being able to do surgeries again. However, the idea of death is even worse, so he's going to go through with the surgery. Grey's Anatomy just dropped a stop sign in front of one potential couple. Jules is down but not out after the January 15th episode of A Grey's Anatomy, which put more distance between her and Winston, while also presenting another exciting possibility for the future. Jules was already in a personal and professional rut at the top of the hour, and it certainly didn't help when she overheard Link telling Winston that Jo would be happy if he and Iris became a thing. Jo previously lashed out at the very idea, screaming, "Did you sleep with my favorite nurse?" But that was apparently just the hormones talking. Jules then found herself caring for an older woman who developed a blood clot while role-playing with her husband, which proved to be an enlightening experience, though not quite as enlightening as Kwan's assertion that she's aloof. Rude much? Jules bumped into Winston at Joe's, better late than never, and he assured her that she's anything but aloof. "You're discerning and you don't suffer any fools, but that's not aloof," he said. "That's protecting yourself because you care." Jules was clearly about to respond with the truth about her feelings for him, but she was interrupted by, you guessed it, Iris. Kwan could sense that Jules was preoccupied by Winston and Iris, giving him a chance to make up for calling her aloof earlier. "She's a stop sign, not a roadblock," Kwan assured her. The episode ended with Jules drinking solo, but not for very long. A handsome stranger introduced himself to her, and she welcomed the conversation, taking a cue from her role-playing patient. "Hi, I'm Sally." Jo gets a reality check, Richard gets a surprise. In other Grey's Anatomy developments, Jo and Link's babies were revealed to be named Peyton and Hattie. Jo befriended a fellow mom in the NICU, but the situation changed when her new bestie started seizing. Unable to step out of doctor mode, and thank goodness, Jo basically took over the woman's treatment, certain that she was being misdiagnosed. But rules are rules, even on A Grey's Anatomy, and Jo wasn't allowed to look at the patient's charts, sending her into a dramatic spiral. Link was able to talk her down, but she's clearly eager to move past this chapter of their family's story. Catherine surprised Richard by flying in Dr. Laura Kaplan, guest star Jamie Lynn Sigler, for a second opinion on his course of treatment, which he neither wanted nor appreciated. He changed his tune, however, after hearing Laura's story, specifically how she's managed her MS diagnosis, ending the hour significantly more open to her suggestions. Owen also got a pep in his step this week by way of a risky but successful tumor removal. His out-of-the-box thinking saved Bailey's patient, inspiring him to share more of his ideas. He suggested having the residents do ambulance ride-alongs or EMS training, which could help them think on the feet in the and/or. Looking very proud, Bailey told him to write up a proposal and send it her way. Lucas insisted that his relationship with Katie is limited to texting each other dumb memes, but Simone challenged him, suggesting that he could be unknowingly leading her on. To say that he didn't care for Simone's intervention would be an understatement, but the exes did reach a promising understanding by the end of the hour. Lucas said he still values her input, just not on relationships, for obvious reasons. Awkward, but fair. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 8 Review, a mixed bag of plots. Is it just me, or has Grey's Anatomy been a mixed bag these days? The tone of these installments can be all over the place, resulting in some storylines working better than others in any given hour. For example, with Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 8, Weber learning to navigate decisions regarding his prostate cancer and Bailey and Owen finding their own inspiration, resulting in them pulling off the impossible, were compelling. The rest? Not so much. It was nice to have Jamie Lynn Sigler guest starring, and it was better to have a character and actress raising awareness about MS in an organic way. She and Pickens Jr. are using this show as a platform for their characters and their health battles, making these stories more compelling. Fortunately, Weber hearing about what she's endured and how she's still able to practice medicine, her calling, put him at ease, and her confidence and assertion that she can handle complications to surgery if they arise better than whatever will happen if his cancer metastasizes, the push he needed. Thank goodness, Weber is getting the surgery he needs. Owen and Bailey finding inspiration works. I know many people loathe Owen, so they always read everything he does a certain way, leading to bad faith takes that aren't always warranted. But I love that on Grey's Anatomy, the characters are still capable of inspiring one another. He was thrilled for Teddy and Winston. Their podcast about their groundbreaking surgery on Nora reflected well on these esteemed doctors and the hospital. But they also lit a fire under Owen and Bailey, and I loved that for them. Some of the best arcs on the series are when they cut back on melodrama and messy relationship drama, and we actually get to see why these are the best doctors in their field, and the passion they still have for the craft. Bailey and Owen are a great professional team, and it actually made me smile when they successfully removed that massive tumor from Bailey's patient. It didn't seem like anything that could really happen, and I'm relieved it didn't end in some tragedy. Grey's Anatomy Recap January 15th, 26, Season 22 Episode 8, Heavy on Me. Tonight on ABC their hit drama Grey's Anatomy returns with an all-new Thursday, January 15th, 2026, Season 22 Episode 8, and we have your Grey's Anatomy recap below. In tonight's Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 8 called, Heavy on Me, as per the ABC synopsis, Bailey and Owen join forces to save a tumor patient, while Richard faces an internal battle. Meanwhile, Jules struggles with her feelings for Winston. We are so excited for another season of Grey's Anatomy, so make sure to bookmark this spot and come back from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time for our Grey's Anatomy recap. While you wait for the recap, make sure to check out all our Grey's Anatomy recaps, spoilers, news and more, right here. Tonight's Grey's Anatomy recap begins now. Refresh page often to get the most current updates. In tonight's Grey's Anatomy episode, Teddy and Winston did a podcast about Nora's surgery. It was groundbreaking surgery. They might have saved thousands of lives by proving it could be done. It gave Owen hope. It did the same for Bailey. Bailey has a patient whose benign tumor could kill her simply because of its placement. It displaces the lungs as well as the heart. It was resistant to chemotherapy. She experienced 2 surgeries that had to be aborted at the last minute because she kept flatlining on the table. Bailey didn't care about all of that because she knew that a successful surgery could give this patient back some quality of life. Bailey wanted to push ahead with surgery. She went to the idea table amongst doctors. She asked if anyone could stand with her in doing the surgery, and most of them turned it down fast. They didn't want to risk a possible lawsuit. That's how they saw London. London was merely a lawsuit. She wasn't a person anymore to them. They didn't want to risk getting sued just to save her. Bailey was still pushing ahead, and Owen must have been a little too moved from earlier podcast because he agreed to do the surgery. There was just one problem. Neither he nor Bailey had an actual plan to tackle the many complications that would come with surgery. They were just willing to risk it because London doesn't have any other choice. They roped in Winston to see if he could help them. They had the interns doing background research into similar tumors. They wanted to know everything that's worked and not everything that failed. Lucas didn't mind working with Simone. Then again, he didn't know that she now officially sleeping with an intern. Simone was sleeping with Wes. They hooked up the first time and it stopped Simone getting back together with Lucas. Now, they were hooking up because Simone felt she didn't have enough problems. Her relationship with Lucas nearly destroyed her career. She's now getting involved in another workplace romance and this time with someone junior to her. Simone knew she shouldn't. She also knew she shouldn't be jealous of Lucas's patient. The one that was messaging him all the time and asking for movie recommendations. Katie has stage 4 cancer. She was in a clinical trial that might not work out. She didn't have much. Let her have this friendship. Lucas thought he was just being supportive. It was Simone that claimed he could be leading her on by not defining boundaries. Like she could talk with what she has with Wes. Does Wes know it was only sex or does he think they could be something more? It's the same problem that Quan had last week with the fellow that he's sleeping. They work together and seeing each other every day might lead someone to believe they were dating. Those two decided that they were merely sleeping together. Simone's case might be something more if not something with the potential of being different. Simone doesn't know. Lucas doesn't know about it. She therefore doesn't have a right to be jealous of getting friendly with another woman. The two didn't find a solution with similar tumors because there were no similar tumors. None that had the same markers as London's tumor. It's okay, though, because Owen finally came up with an idea. Owen realized they could use ECMO. The ECMO would be pumping the blood through her veins like her heart normally would. It would stabilize her in surgery long enough for them to get to the tumor. They agreed to it. They talked London about it. She agreed because she didn't want dying slowly. Her wife was apprehensive. She still agreed to it, seeing it as it was the only solution. London's surgery was tricky. She nearly coded on the table and they stopped it. They were able to successfully remove her tumor. Jo in the meantime got to spend with her girls in the NICU. She met another mom with a baby in there. They became mom friends. Unfortunately, this friend started to seize. She was suffering from preeclampsia. Jo recognized the signs. She talked the woman's doctor through what needed to be done. She tried to check her file later on and her favorite nurse refused to do it because Jo wasn't the doctor listed on the file, and so Jo lost it. She began yelling. Her husband had to roll her wheelchair away. Jo has been through a lot and it was all catching up to her now. Jo has been quite emotional since the twins' birth. She even cried when she found out Iris has been grabbing drinks with Winston because Iris was her favorite nurse. It's why she was going to apologize to her after today. She also considered changing hospitals. She was embarrassed she cried so much and in front of so many people. Mind you, the Iris thing had Jules avoiding Winston until she could no longer do so. She helped a couple that needed help and that gave her the push she needed to be adventurous. Richard also agreed to seek other options for his prostate cancer. His wife wanted him to. He kept refusing to do earlier because he didn't want to take opioids for the possible pain, and that's just a risk he has to take if he wants to survive this thing. Grey's Anatomy Season 22. Grey's Anatomy isn't done yet. Against all expectations, and more than a few emotional goodbyes, the long-running medical drama returns for another season, once again throwing its doctors into high-pressure cases and even higher-stakes personal fallout. Season 22 picks up with Grey Sloan Memorial still operating at full throttle, as familiar faces step back into Scrubs and the hospital continues to test how much its staff can endure before something finally gives. Relationships remain complicated, careers hang in the balance, and saving lives is still only half the battle. If you've been following this one over the weeks, you may be curious to find out when the next episode is releasing. Well, wonder no more. Here is everything you need to know about Episode 8 of Grey's Anatomy Season 22, including its release date, time, and where you can watch this. Where can I watch Grey's Anatomy? Grey's Anatomy is scheduled to air on the ABC network. It's also available on Disney+, Hulu, and other streaming services like Sling TV and Fubo TV. For those watching internationally, this one will air a day later on Disney+. Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 8 Release Date. Episode 8 of Grey's Anatomy Season 22 will release on Thursday, January 15th at 10 p.m. ET/7 p.m. PT. For those watching internationally, this will drop on Disney+ a day later, on Friday, January 16th at approximately 8 a.m. GMT. Grey's Anatomy should drop with subtitles available whilst watching on catch-up. Episode 8 is expected to be roughly 42 minutes long, which is consistent with the time frame for the rest of the series. How many episodes will Grey's Anatomy Season 22 have? ABC has confirmed that there will be 18 episodes this season, which is pretty consistent with how many have run in years gone by. With that in mind, expect there to be 10 more episodes to go after this one. Is there a trailer for Grey's Anatomy? Grey's Anatomy Season 22 Episode 9 Recap. Weber fights against a second opinion. Meanwhile, Bailey goes up to the tumor board to see if she can get help for treatment for a tumor patient. The tumor is benign, but it's a tricky situation and the patient has coded on the table twice while at Seattle Press. The tumor board isn't interested in the risk, except for Owen. He doesn't have any idea on how to deal with it, but he's ready to tackle the situation. Maybe he's encouraged by the success that Teddy has had. Bailey and Owen need a miracle. Weber and Catherine meet with Laura, and she quickly gets into the details of the cancer. The good news is that Weber has caught it early, and she thinks the best treatment is to remove the prostate. However, Weber isn't interested in this, focusing on the downsides of the surgery, such as stroke, and it's understandable. To be fair, Catherine railroaded him into this, and she knows what it's like to want to deal with cancer on your own. However, I will say pot meet kettle. Bailey goes to her tumor patient, Lydia, with the mixed news. While the tumor board says no, Owen makes it clear that he wants to help. It's time for them to co-work on a plan, and Lydia wants to do it. Her wife may not be completely on board with this, but Lydia convinces her to give it a try. Jo heads to the NICU to see her babies, where she meets with another mom of a NICU baby. Despite knowing about the post-birth hormone drop, she wasn't expecting to feel things the way she is doing. However, this NICU mom doesn't let her focus on that part of things. She wants to know all about the crash C-section. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.